Welcome to EPG Pathshala. This is Dr. Mrinmoy Pramanik. I teach comparative Indian language and literature at the University of Calcutta. Today we will discuss a module on poetry in Maori, genres, language of a people. Explicating the role of poetry, songs, rhymes in the Maori life, Sir Apirana Nagata, in the 1959 introduction to his collection of Maori poems, recollected a significant anecdote from his early Pakeha school days. To his young mind, the English schooling system impressed for ever the difference between Maori and Pakeha method. Thus began the process of absorbing knowledge by eye, by reading on blackboards or books, by associating sounds with letters, by making all calculations in writing. But our teacher, a Mr. Green, who achieved great success at Waiomatatini and at Waiokawaiti at the South Island, resorted now and then to the ancient Polynesian method of teaching through the ear. We sang the multiplication tables up to 12 times 12 in chorus. The singing or recitation worked to a climax so that passers-by or parents and elders suspended their work or journey until the crashing finale, Tiuro tamu, tiuro a hanarete, hutehu. From oral to visual, the journey towards new knowledge for a Maori child was thus embedded with a sense of loss and distance from their own heritages. However, the sense of this immeasurable loss had to wait at least a century to express itself through Maori poetry, and till then it remained camouflaged in the discovery, journals and transactions of the white Pakehas who painstakingly collected thousands of Maori tracts, classified them and attempted to make meaning of it. One such glimpse can be found in W. Colensow's 1881 article, which began emphatically claiming that, I quote, "It may truly be said that the New Zealand poetry is or was part of their daily life. Whatever differences in taste might have existed among the various ancient tribes composing the Maori people, in this matter they were preeminently as one. All used it, all were moved by it, all enjoyed it." Unquote. The case of Maori poetry, therefore, is not that of an unrelatable wonder. On the contrary, being a part of the spectra of Commonwealth, locations like ours, that is India, too offers us many examples where vernaculars were rediscovered by the English, like the language of the Maori. An oral Polynesian literary culture with its plethora of songs for different aspects of life, Maori poetry, in this context, presents us with an opportunity to attempt and understand its evolution under settler colonial regime. The early English scholarship emerged around the late 19th century in the form of journal articles, collection of songs. What came out rather overwhelmingly from these early scholarly works was an uneasiness of the writers, researchers of the time to deal with the range of poetry Maori tradition had to offer. Consequently, though the place of poetry in the everyday life of Maori people became quite sensationalized, there was no comprehensive systematic knowledge about it. Classifications piled up ranging from lullaby, dirges, war songs, canoe songs, love song, hymns, ritual songs, and so on. Till the first half of the 20th century, at least, we only had a rough, albeit a romantic picture of a community which uses nursery ditties and jungles to amuse its children, historical tales to inform the youth, songs of encouragement after the hard work of the day, rowed their canoes with songs in their lips, and so went to the wars and to the graveyards to bury their loved ones. However, by the middle of the 20th century, as a number of Maori people efficient in the Pakea or English knowledge system came up with their own collections and explanation. The old romantic picture got tarnished a bit. For example, Sir Apirana Nagata provided only four broad categories of songs or poetry in his introduction to Naga Moteata, composed in 1928, and they are 1. Lullabies to Laments, 3. Patera or abusive songs and Kauraura, song of defiance, the 4th, love songs. However, he also mentioned that this classification does not include another set of 5 groups such as Ruri or ditties, Mata or prophetic songs, Gnegri or chants, Haka or posture dances, Karakia or ritualistic chants. Lullabies as a genre is a geographical and genealogical one. On the birth of a new member of the family, the elder, generally the grandmother, is tasked with composing one lullaby. And that composition includes the family history. Who are they? Where did they come from? Which all places the family traveled? The newborn is often mentioned in the composition as a relative not only of the family but also of the lullaby. It shall also be noted that tales of war in which the family had been involved also gets a place in such compositions as well. Let us take the example of one such lullaby by Haine Kita Witi, However, before that, let us consider the family chart in figure 1. Hainekitawhiti is the grandmother of the Autarirangi, and another granddaughter of the family is Tangitoki, who is another relative of the song. And the song begins, "May you be set apart, as is fitting for a descendant of a Toriki." May you be set apart, as is fitting for a descendant of Porauhoria. And goes on to give details of the family travels and history. Laments, on the other hand, is an all-comprising genre. The songs that have survived till the later times, after the death of the parents for whom it was written, dies or killed, all fall in the category of laments. They are also very significant repository of the old Maori words and ancient sayings. Some of the famous laments are Lament by Turaukawa, the high priest of Tranaki, and Lament by Rangyugyu, the last highest priest of the Rauhuro, a place of ancient Maori learning in the east coast of New Zealand. The group of songs known as Petear are topical in nature. It involves insult, derogatory references, challenges to one another, and often abusive language and references to shameful past defeats. They are different in their tonal quality as well. Compared to laments or love songs, these are faster and are accompanied by lot of body movement, gestures, stares, and facial expressions. According to Aspirina Nagata, another group called Poi songs are also part of Petear. Poi songs are sung by women. Generally, who indulge in the game of poi, a small ball at the end owed of a rope. These songs refer to genealogical details, historical or spiritual queries about oneself. An example of this type is the poi song, Patera of Iranora. Swing afar my poi, skim onward my poi, upwards the heights at Otairi, and there drew night unto Pateya. Expressed in a lyrical manner and composed of some of the most intriguing Maori language phrases, love songs are a rare specimen. The scarcity of this genre is due to its transitory manner, due to its transitory nature. A number of these songs vanished with the death of the composer. However, some do remain and are compiled. Some scholars, including Sir Apirna Nagata, opined that these songs also contained a lot of unrefined coarse phrases. He also suggested that such an occurrence is not surprising considering the time and its antiquity. However, in later translations, most of such so-called aberrations were purged. The following is an excerpt from a love song. The authorship of the song is disputed. However, Nagata Pikiao, a sub-tribe of Te Aroa, claimed the authorship. And our embraces will be binding, for my charm drew at midnight, the hills standing there in the distance, Te Tara above the Tuhara below, where I was wont to dwell, and my head was wretched in mist, wafted by the warm west wind, which blew toward the dwelling's door. Now I adjure you, Hoki, to take back word. I will follow the current to Hades, lest I be too near to regard the barrier separating the loved one. Translation by Apirana Nagata. Apart from the above mentioned broad categories, there remain a number of the songs, and the latest of them being the slum poetry, which is currently one of the most popular genres of poetry within Maori, New Zealand. Amalgamating the old trends with the fierce new words, this new genre of the Maori poetry world, aims to attack the stereotypes about them and presents a fresh new vision by declaring that they are a different brown. Among the practitioners of slam Maori poetry, Te Kahu Rollstone, Sheldon Rua have made notable contributions in the recent times. The traditional forms of oral poetry remains the major source of Maori poetry, such as Waita Ringa Ringa, Waita Tangi, Waita Aroha, Ori Ori, Karakia, Haka, and Waikorero. But writing words down in a different language and different forms, as was the circumstances since 1850s. Gradually new genre evolved, and so evolved the language of Maori poetry. Maori writing is described as the Poutokomanawa of New Zealand literature, meaning heart of the house. However, most of the Maori poets, writers, refer to a word wakapapa. Wakapapa literally means placing in layers. Figuratively, it stands for the history of the Iwi people, their fight and survival, which is ingrained in their language, stories, and poetries. And that is where lies the connection between the people and its language beyond detachment. In poetry, that knowledge remains absorbed in relational terms, place names, which in turn works as a reminder to its people of its history, of battles, genocides, etc. And with the tonal variations, along with the body gesture and graphic metaphors, Maori people have weaved a world of their own words away from trespassers. However, in some way, though bound to English education for their career, memories, anthologies of Maori work like that of Sir Apina Nagata is no exception in this regard, as it laments over the decaying knowledge of Maori among the new generations. Fortunately, a new door seems to have opened as well in such curious times and made the Maori language travel far with English or Pakeha. And the goal was, as always, to reclaim a Rio all your own, since language doth but clothe in artifice our passion, writes Nagata. The following lines from the poem A Scene from the Past by Apirana Nagata gives vent to this anxious growth of the language and the culture brilliantly, as it says, there the old pa stands today, where the mountain clad in Caucasus bends with gentle slope and fondly showers kisses on the stream, rippling, laughing, winding, moaning, hies she on to join the ocean, emblem of a race that is spreading sadly onwards to oblivion. The earliest Maori poem published in English was written by Aspirana Nagata. It was Nagata who collated hundreds of annotated songs in Teru Rangatira, culminating in the preeminent anthology Naga Moteatia. Though he worked on this collection for decades, it was finally anthologized for the first time in 1959 and was followed up by several volumes. Before that, however, his research and findings were serially published in the Journal of the Polynesian Society from the beginning of the 20th century. Another significant collection, Into the World of Light, came out in 1982. So was the significance of multi-volume Te Ao Marama, which was published between 1992 to 1996. Through such publishing activities and growing English education, generations of new Maori poets emerged, and with them a large array of works, some the poets whose work has established Maori poetry on the firm footing in the world stage would be Peite Hurinui Jones, Tamati Muturangi Reddy, and Hirini Mokomet, Hon Tuhare, Robert Sullivan, Rangi Faith, and Arepera Blanc, Witi Ihimaera, D.S. Long, Iri Hapeti Ramsden, and Hare Williams, Jesse Stam, Tixite Arama Menzies, Kerry Halme, Apirana Taylor, Roma Potiki, Haine Moana Baker, and Phil Kawana Hawaii is best poet Vernice Winira. Vernice is the first Maori woman to publish her poetry. So we can understand with this study that the Maori poetry carries its tradition and culture not only as themes of the poems, but the genres, what they found in their culture and tradition throughout the ages, which are the gift of their ancestors, are actually carried in poetry. Poetry is written in those forms what they have gathered from their cultural and traditional practices and past. And through that, through those forms and genres, they are writing the contemporary poetry also. Maori people, they have successfully established their identity and they have successfully recorded their cultural elements through their poetic practices. They have kept alive the ancient words, the old words, vocabularies, through their poetic practices and other literary practices, and they have kept alive their poetic genres which carries which carry their history of culture and tradition. The English education or Pakeha education educated them and exposed the European literature and European education in front of them, but they were not lost into that. They have learned it, and the cultural infusion, what actually happened in any empire or any colony, that also happened for the Maori people, that cultural infusion through their poetic and other literary practices. So we can find a Maori identity with their literary practices, but we can also find the modern themes and modern kind of literary themes and practices in Maori literature. And Maori poetry is most significant part of their cultural and social life, what successfully made their identity and what raised their voice successfully and what helped them to resist against the cultural hegemony of Pakeha or White's empire or White's colony. So through this study of this module, we came to know about different genres of Maori poetry and the history of the genres and the famous poets of Maori poetry and the Maori poetry collection and other things. And we also came to know that how publishing and modern technology was important to establish the Maori literary scenario. For further reading, you can consult the further reading list and you can follow the other links provided in references and further reading list. And for self-assessment, you can find the attached file of self-assessment here. Thank you.